making that decision is the hardest part. And I certainly take my hat off to anybody, but it's so worth it in the end. For any child, no matter what they want to do or what they want to be, there's an opportunity for them in Australia. I think the other important one is the respect for women and the ability to be able to run your own business in Australia.
I'm Dr. Chamonix Blanche, ex-corporate and academical turned CEO and board member of several companies and mother of 4 little extraordinary kids. But it wasn't that long ago that I lacked the confidence, the know-how, and the time to focus on designing and really going after the life that I so wanted to live. A life of freedom, of fairness, and of being fair dinkum to who I really was and what I wanted to get out of this fleeting time that we have on Mother Earth. Fast forward to many lessons learned and moving halfway around the world to the most amazing country, you'll see the life that I now live. One that gives me more safety and freedom than I ever thought would be possible, and that really only existed as a daydream while I was living in South Africa. I created Chamonix TV to give you true spot advice on how you can also live a life in this amazing country, and so that you can see how another couple like us now live in Australia with 4 little kids here in Down Under. And I'll be providing you with step-by-step strategies so that you can make your Aussie dream a reality too. If you're a keen future Aussie who's looking to create a life that excites you and offers you safety, freedom, and opportunity, you have come to the right place, my friend. Welcome aboard.
Hi, Robyn. Thanks so much for joining us today. It is lovely to have you all the way from Melbourne over the easy technology Zoom that we have today. How are you going?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to chat to you. It's sunset here and the birds are making a noise, but yeah, it's been a good day.
It's interesting that you talk about the birds, because that's been one of the things that I had to get used to, was the different bird sounds, like the different nature sounds, because where I grew up, there were always just doves, pigeons. So the cuckoo, 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 whatever. I'm a bad imitator of a dove. but now we have crows over on this side often.
Yeah.
And what are the birds that are in your background at the moment?
The ones screaming at the moment are the cockatoos, the ones with the big yellow crest. That's it. Yes, the white ones, white cockatoos.
Okay.
So there's probably about 20 of them outside my window. They're a little way away, but they come here to roost each evening. But we get a lot of parrots and lorikeets and all sorts here. So yeah, I love, I'm from Durban and we had hardy-daws and other screeching birds, but I quite like the cockatoos. They're very cheeky though.
So you mentioned earlier that you had left South Africa yonks ago. When did you leave and what was your route into Australia?
So I left South Africa 26 years ago. Don't count me on that, but about 26 years ago now. Mostly, was for my husband's work. He was offered a job in England. So we went off to England as newlyweds. We'd only been married 2 years. And off we went to England and spent 9 years in England. Then we went to Singapore, then France, and then Australia. So yeah, it was a bit of a round trip.
And this is it now? No more moving?
Absolutely, this is it. So my children, I've got 2 children, a girl and a boy. They were both born in England. And by the time we got to Australia, they were sort of 7 and 9. So it was time to stop. It's moving teenagers around the world is never an easy thing to do. So and we'd always wanted to be in Australia. That was always our dream. So we managed to get here eventually.
So what was the visa categories have changed obviously since then, but what was the skill that you guys came in on, that your husband came in on, or was it what was the requirements back then?
It was a 457 visa, but he's on a Dutch passport. His parents, even though he was brought up and born in Durban, his parents were Dutch, so he had a Dutch passport. So that made it a little bit easier, although we did have an issue when we were in England because he had dual citizenship between South Africa and Netherlands. And Netherlands changed the laws to say you can no longer be a dual citizen. So they revoked his citizenship, which actually made us almost illegal in England, because now suddenly we were on South African passports with no visa.
That's interesting.
Yes. So
what did you do then?
Well, his company sponsored him for a visa, luckily, so we could stay on. And the Dutch actually changed the law about a year later again and said, oh, okay, you can have your passport back.
Oh, we're so in the hands of the authorities, aren't we?
We are. And especially here in Australia, I mean, it changes overnight sometimes, the visa requirements. You have to get going and get your, any opportunity you can get.
That's exactly right. That's been one of the scariest things for the people that we usually help, is that the rule today might not be the rule tomorrow. Yes. And it doesn't take one day to plan your things. It takes several months and sometimes years for some of our members of, friends that want to immigrate. And it's like, well, if I start planning today based on this rule, is it still going to be in place tomorrow or the day after or next month? And the answer is, unfortunately, we can't say. We don't know. Nobody knows.
No, exactly.
So, yeah, it's a bit of a leap of faith that you have to take in that regard.
You have to take the leap of faith, and I think that's the hardest thing sometimes, is actually making the decision to leave. I mean, I never left because I didn't like the country or anything. We left for a job opportunity, and when you're that young, it's still exciting. And I certainly appreciate those people that actually put time and effort into filing their applications, going through the whole visa process, the medicals and everything. To actually make that decision, I think, is the hardest part. And once the ball starts rolling, you could just go. You just have to go with it. You have to run with it. But I think making that decision is the hardest part. And I certainly take my hat off to anybody, but it's so worth it in the end.
So that's a good roll into my next question. Why do you love Australia so much? Or what is it about Australia that you like?
There's a few things I would say. First and foremost is the children. My children have had every opportunity they could possibly want here, whatever it might have been. And that's for any child, no matter what they want to do or what they want to be, there's an opportunity for them in Australia. I think the other important one is the respect for women and the ability to be able to run your own business in Australia. And actually, that reminds me, because a friend's son, I was meeting them the other day. She's got 3 boys, and her middle child, which he must be 16. He's 16 at the moment. He's just started his own business, and he said to me, oh, sorry, those birds are screaming.
That's all right.
He said to me, if I was still in South Africa, I wouldn't have even thought I could start my own business. And that's what's amazing. It's those things that, the whole world is at their feet. They can do that. And as I said, just running your own business, even as a woman, the support, the everything is just there. You can be whatever you want to be in Australia. I really believe that.
And another thing that I saw as well is the midlife career changes that people do, or you could do it any time. But in Australia, it's quite a common thing for people to be working in this field, and then they get tired of it and like, I'll try something else, and then they just go that way. And it's like, no problem.
Or even road trips, I'm going to take 6 months off and I'm going to do a road trip around Australia, or I'm just taking 6 months off to do something completely different. You can just do it because you just, I don't know if it's also a headspace thing, where you've actually got time. You're not stressing about everything else that might be difficult in your life. You've got time to actually think about doing those things and getting them underway. It's great. I even as young as I was when I left South Africa, I didn't understand how much pressure I was on. And I remember walking in the street in London and thinking to myself, it actually feels like a weight's been lifted off my shoulders that I didn't even know was there. I was walking freely down the street. I wasn't holding onto my handbag or, any of those subconscious concerns that you have in South Africa. When you leave, they're just gone. And I see it in friends as well. They sort of think everything's going to be hard when they get here. I have to get a driving license. And I'm like, yeah, that's okay. It takes an hour out your day,
That's
and
right.
then they're like, oh, Medicare, it's gonna be too hard. No.
Application completed. There you go.
Exactly. So it's not as hard as what people think it is going to be, because they're used to it being hard. It's not.
But I also think it's just the unknown. It's just that not being sure of what to expect, and which is
Yes.
great, because and that brings me to my next question, what it is that you do for a living. I know now, but I'd love you to share with our viewers. But that's why what you and I do, and which is what these interviews are trying to achieve, is to just bring some light to the people in terms of what to expect and how it really is in Australia. Now, it's not all perfect, of course not. Nowhere on earth is perfect. It's Earth, you know.
Yes.
But but there are differences in what to be worried about in South Africa versus what to be worried about in Australia.
Yes, exactly. And there's a few motivations of why I do the work I do. So I'm a relocation consultant. I help people to find a home, find a school, shortlist their suburbs, work with them to narrow down what suits their lifestyle. And I love it. I mean, I started it because I'd come from France, and trying to learn French and open a business in France was a whole nother ball game. You just don't you don't understand.
Wow.
So when I arrived here, I thought, well, I could at least help other French women who are coming here, because I could sort of speak the language. And if I couldn't, I at least knew what crème fraîche was, or whatever they might be looking for. I could relate. And then I realized that, you know, the South Africans also need a lot of love and support sometimes. And I think the South Africans for me are a very you know, I deal with clients from all over the world, but the South Africans for me, not just because, you know, they're my fellow countrymen, but because, shush, not only because they're my fellow countrymen, but the South Africans are one of the few people that I move who can't or won't necessarily come here with the idea of going back. When they come to Australia, it's not like the British or the Americans who just sort of think to themselves, oh, if it doesn't work out, I'll go back. South Africans come here with a very different mindset. And I think mindset is so important. But South Africans also come with other issues of maybe, you know, undiagnosed traumas or things like that they're not dealing with. So I really like to be with my clients on the long haul and make sure that they're okay. So, and that's pretty much why we decided to write the book as well, because there's a lot of stuff you don't understand. It's all very well going through the mechanics of the move, but there's a lot of emotional stuff that you need to deal with. So the book that we wrote was really more about not just the functions of how to move, but that emotional side as well. Because if you're prepared for that and you understand what culture shock is and you understand what emotional roller coaster it's going to be, you are more accepting when it happens. You know, you're not kind of like, oh, okay, this, you know, this is normal. Robyn told me this was going to happen to me, you know. So
absolutely, almost expect the worst and then you can't be let down.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, we don't, it's not doom and gloom, don't get me wrong, but we're just trying to make people aware. And
be realistic about it.
Yes.
I've seen a number of South Africans who come to Australia and they believe that the red carpet should be rolled out for them as soon as they step with their feet on Australian soil. And it's not like that. South Africans are highly regarded in general in Australia. They are, and we are hard workers, but you know, you're just another person coming into Australia. You also have to work hard to earn a buck.
And I think that's what a lot of people, no matter what the nationality, they don't always understand is how multicultural Australia is. You know, there's no difference. You know, I know Perth has a lot of South Africans, but here in Melbourne, there's a lot, but there's not as many, I think, clustered together as you have in Perth. But that is definitely something that surprises people, is how multicultural the country is. And they sort of think, you know, they're going to be the only international person. They sort of have a bit of a tunnel vision, but no, it's very multicultural and they're very accepting of it, as long as you know your boundaries and aren't too egotistical, let's say.
Well, we all like people who know their boundaries, don't we? So it's just easier to work with those kinds of people. So when you moved to Australia those years ago, what was the hardest thing for you to get used to, Robyn?
Oh, after France, this felt like a breeze. I think just that settling in period, you know, that first sort of 3 months, 6 months, even though I'd made so many international moves, I think that sort of first few months was really difficult in trying to understand, and just the little things. It's the little things sometimes that really get to you. You know, it's like I kept walking out and my wheelie bin had been knocked over by the guy doing the dustbin run. And I was like, why does he keep doing that? Why does he keep knocking over my wheelie bin? And it was because I didn't understand that the wheelie bin has to face the side of face the road so he can pick it up properly. So he would just knock it over. You know, it's those little things. And those are the things that can get you down sometimes. Or the estate agent who I went to the house expecting her to meet me at the house and walk me through the house and give me the keys and explain things. And she just didn't rock up. And when I phoned her, she said, oh, no, you have to come to the office. I was like, well, where's the office? Oh, in the village centre. Well, where's that? You know, it's those... it's those little things sometimes. Everybody says Australia is easy, and I think they underestimated themselves sometimes of what's easy for them is not always easy for the new arrival.
That's very true. And do you go back to South Africa often? Obviously pre-COVID.
Yeah. All my family's in South Africa. They're all in Durban. So yeah, I try and go back and see everybody and to have some really good family time. But yeah, probably COVID, and when you've got a family, you know, there's 4 of us, it's expensive to go back. So it takes a little bit of time to save money. But yeah, we try and go back every few years at least.
Yeah. And what do you bring with you back to Australia in your bag from South Africa when you go?
Lots of love. Lots of family love. Probably clothes and jewelry and things like that. Yeah. Definitely.
Any specific shop that you like to go to in South Africa? Because I know a number of people like Woolworths clothes in South Africa.
Well, no, I'm trying to remember now, but I wouldn't even know. There's a little boutique shop in Durban that I go to, and they just have my style. But no, I mean, Woolworths is owned by Country Road. I mean, the other way around. Country Road is owned by Woolworths South Africa, so they have similar clothes here now. So probably in the old days, yes, when I was still in England, then I would definitely go to Woolworths in South Africa and get all my husband's new work shirts, and yeah, definitely then.
So you've climatized in terms of food. There's nothing specific about South Africa that you long for. I'm not talking about friends and family. I'm talking about products.
Yeah. Oh, do you know what? Food is one of those things that connects everybody. And there's plenty of South African shops here in Melbourne. So definitely a packet of flings, some biltong. They're usually on my shopping list when I go to the South African shop. A bit of milk tart, although my husband doesn't make a bad milk tart. I'll give him that. But biltong, good red wine. Those are definitely on the shopping list when I go into the Sappho shop.
And your children, do they think they're Australian, British, French? What's their identity? South African?
It's funny, really, because I think my daughter's more feels like she's more South African. She just wants to talk like a South African and be like a South African, which is really strange because she's never, she wasn't born there and she's only been there on holidays. And she has a very close relationship with a lot of her cousins in South Africa. My son is very laid back. He takes it as it comes. I think he was offered some scholarships to go to America, and he was like, no, I'm staying here. When we actually moved to Australia, he was adamant that he wouldn't stay in Australia. He'd go back to England. So it is an interesting question. And considering he left England when he was 4, I'm like,
Interesting. Yeah. But you guys now are Australian citizens, and that's correct, the only citizenship that you have?
Yes.
So when did you give up your South African citizenship?
Probably about 2 years ago now, because I became a citizen only 5 years ago, I think it was. And then there was all that, they were talking about expat tax and all sorts of things. And even though I'd left a long time ago, I was like, I don't want to have trouble when I'm going there. I was reading a few stories where people were saying they weren't allowed back on the aeroplane until their tax was paid. And I was like, I'm just, let me out of there.
Yes, yeah, that's right. You can never be too certain because you're at the hands of the authorities. When you get off that plane and you walk to the passport control, you never know what they might tell you there. I've seen heard some interesting or scary stories actually.
But when I became an Australian citizen, it was again one of those sort of moments where you didn't realize it, but I suddenly felt like somebody had my back. I never felt like that before. And I never even missed it because I didn't know that. But when I became an Australian citizen, I just thought I could walk into any country, and if I've got a problem, there will be an Australian citizen there that can help me, an embassy that can help me. You know,
that's such a good description. Yeah, that's such a good description of exactly of that feeling. And it's a relief, and you suddenly feel like, oh, I can now make this my home. I can stay here forever. Well, that certainly was the thing for me, because I didn't come with PR. I came as a student visa, and nothing was certain that I would in the end be able to stay in Australia. So I was just all along so worried. I was too scared to do anything. I was too scared to drive too fast. I was scared if I'm going to go 61 in the 60 zone that they're going to say to me, Chamonix, you're not allowed to stay in Australia. Go home. You know, I'm like, oh, so I was just like the perfect Miss Goody Two Shoes. So, yeah.
And you are like that until you get your PR citizenship. You're just like, I've got to keep a really clean slate.
Absolutely. I was so worried. And then, when I finally got it, I'm like, okay, now I can be a normal person again. Not that you go out of your way to do something wrong, but it's just it's just different. It's just as you say, you feel somebody's got your back now. You're okay. You don't have to go anywhere. You can stay in Australia for the rest of your life if you like. And if you are caught up somewhere else, they'll come and rescue you. So.
Yes. And I think that's a big lesson for South Africans as well, what you were saying now about the speed limit, because if I'm telling any South African who's coming out here, obey the rules, watch the speed limits. I don't know how many South Africans I know that have got a speeding fine in the first 3 weeks. I'm just like, really?
Yeah, that's right. And the other thing, although that might have changed in the meantime now, but drink driving in South Africa is very acceptable. Yes. That's just what you do, because it's safer to drive under the influence of alcohol to drive home than to walk home.
Yes,
or catch a taxi or something like that. So here it's absolutely the opposite. So
and that's a very different culture for South Africans to get used to here, not only as themselves drunk driving, but when the children, and I know your children are younger, but my children are 21 and 19 now. And it's a very different drinking culture for their age as well, because they know as learners they can't drink. So, there is always a designated driver, or they sleep over a lot at other people's houses, which as a South African mother, I was like, oh, I don't like that. I want my babies home. But they can't drink and they can't drive. So, that's a whole nother ball game for South Africans to get used to.
Yeah. Planning a night out suddenly becomes a bit more complicated.
Yes. There's a few more people sharing the Uber.
Obviously, we have South Africans watching this interview thinking, I'm considering going to Australia. Should I? Shouldn't I? What would your advice be to them, Robyn?
Do it now. Do it before things change. Do it while you can. At least investigate your options. There's just so many opportunities to be anything you want to be in Australia. It's a great way of life. It's a relaxed way of life. You can get on and just think about what you want to do with your life. And for the children, there's a future here. There's universities, there's jobs, and they can be whatever they want. Just think of that 16-year-old opening his business, and I didn't tell you what his business is. It's basically he paints on shoes. So people actually send him maybe their golf shoes or their cycling shoes, and they want a picture of their dog on them, or they want rainbows on them or something. He paints them.
Wow, that's incredible.
Do you know what I mean? Exactly. And that's the opportunity. There are things that people haven't even thought about. And you can do that in Australia. Just do it. Just if you're able to get out, come in and enjoy your life.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Wow. That's lovely. We should share your son's business link in the description below. So
it's not my son, it's a friend. It's a friend's son.
Anyway, it's that friend's son, because I think it's an awesome thing to do.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Absolutely. So thanks so much, Robyn, for having a chat to us and sharing your story and encouraging other South Africans, showing them that it is possible to have a life in another country, and there is life after South Africa, basically. Because some people think that if the moment they come here, it's going to be, I want to say, the end of their life. They're going to a new life, but they're so concerned because there's going to be no friends and family, and what are they going to do? I think the answer is, wow, there is so much more that you can do.
There is, 100%. And they will make friends, whether they choose to make other South African friends, or Australian friends, Canadian friends. There's so many different communities here, you know, and whatever they might be enjoying as a pastime or a hobby, they'll be able to do that here, and that's where they make friends again.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, and I'm glad to hear the cockatoos are still there. They have your back as well.
Yes, they do. They're better than my dog is as far as guarding the house.
Oh, they're very noisy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. Take care, Robyn.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Goodbye.
All right. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you had fun, please remember to hit that subscribe button, and then it'll make sure that you never miss a thing. I'll see you same time and same place next week. Bye for now.